everyone. I just got out of poodle class, which was really intense, as usual, at Fun in the Sun. So that was exciting. Congratulations to all the winners, especially Jackie Bolton, who won in A Division and Best Surf Poodle. So I'm coming to you live from Florida today, and I want to talk about the winter blues, or sad seasonal affective depression and disorder. But basically, I suffer, and I know a lot of groomers suffer. Summer's over, the holidays are upon us, and life, it's like a whole change of seasons and the change in routines. If you have kids, they're going back to school. It's slower in September and October for us, so you're busy, and then it slows down and you're like, oh God, what's going to happen? So it's a lot of time and the season of worry, as I like to call it. I want to talk about that because a lot of people online, you can see, are having a little bit of a breakdown, or even in person if you hang out, you go to shows with them. And I was having a really rough weekend at New England, and I can't tell you how many people told me to just cheer up and just smile. And when somebody is having a mental health crisis, or in a crisis of anxiety attack, a bout of depression, that is the most toxic and hurtful thing you can say to someone. Because instead of it being about them and if they're okay, I'm reaching out to them, it's all about that person saying, just, you need to smile. Because that is just compounding. When you tell somebody to smile and they don't want to, or they can't, it's hurtful. Basically, you don't give a shit about that person. You're just caring about them and how they're affecting your life. And so stop saying that. Yes, you're trying to be positive and you mean well, but there's a thing called toxic positivity, and that's one of the things. You can literally send somebody into a spiral. And October is Suicide Prevention Month, and not saying that anybody that I know is suicidal, but you never know. And it's the same thing with suicides. One of the most selfish things somebody can do. Yes, it's hurtful to the people that are left, and you might not understand why, but repeating that message over and over again invalidates people who are suffering's feelings, and it makes them silent. And silence is the real killer, because if you don't allow people to feel their emotions and talk about it and give them the space to do it, even if you aren't a willing participant in that crisis, you're compounding a problem. So one of the major things with the winter blues are, again, sad, and this is not for generalized depression disorders or bipolar disorder or things that are year-round. This is just seasonal affective disorder. Tips that have helped me over my lifetime. Vitamin D supplements, 12,000 milligrams, a lot of vitamin D. Unless you are not prone to skin cancer because of your skin tone, then I do suggest, artificially going to a tanning salon for just, one session a week. It's not going to kill you, probably, unless you're super Anglo-Saxon. And even then, the fluorescent lights in your shop are killing you already. So vitamin D, 10 minutes of UV light. If there's a severe, if you have a severe case and it's, spiraling like I did last year into something more than just seasonal, a light box, you can get them prescription, and that's what I would suggest, because light boxes, in general, they can be UV, and you need the UV because it's generally a vitamin D deficiency. Yes, Chris Connor said, "How can I help you?" is a much better, kinder choice than cheer up or smile. And I 1000%. You can ask somebody if they're okay. You can, do you need help? Can I get you something? Even if you know it's going to be all right, because it's always going to be all right. Like, it's like the stock market, life could get worse, but it will eventually probably get better. That's the odds. Yes, Tracy asked if that helps with anxiety. Yes, as long as your anxiety is not due to trauma. I mean, it can help. It can help because vitamin D helps you produce serotonin and all those feel-good hormones, and it helps your brain balance. And I know I just switched two topics there, but yeah. I'll get back to the questions that you should ask somebody in a mental health crisis, or ways you can reach out and make a safe space for that person. And it doesn't, whether or not you agree with how they're feeling, or think that they're being dumb, or you think that it's I had a friend, God bless her, who tried to explain to somebody why I was in that mood last weekend, and she's like, well, when she loses, and I don't care about losing. So even if you think that why that person's upset, or why that person's feeling that way, or why that person has started that cycle, don't ever make an assumption. Because that's now, I had to defend myself, and I was I don't care about losing. I lose all the time. Losing doesn't matter to me. Yeah, it's great to win, but I've won four times in the last 3 years. So anyway, but back to the light box. Helps a lot. Vitamin D. Obviously, counseling, if you feel the need, or you don't have someone to talk to, and just to be a safe vent person. And if somebody is trying to vent to you or trying to reach out to you, don't shut them out. I had friends that I thought were friends, and I tried to talk to them, and they kind of blew me off. And I had people that I'm not that close to pull me aside and take me into a room and let me get it all out, and calm me down, and really help me try to break that cycle. So vitamin D, light box, counseling, if you need it. And I'm terrible about taking medication, so I don't, and I'm not a severe case. I have a couple of really bad bouts of anxiety, and then usually it's just I don't want to get up, I don't want to do anything. But some people aren't. Some people it stops their entire life, and that's beyond a little bit of light therapy and a little bit of vitamin D. And if you're feeling you just nothing, if you feel a lot of apathy, if you feel you don't care what you're eating, what you look like, you don't have the energy to brush your teeth, that's when you need to seek more professional help for sure. Because even if you don't feel you are suicidal, when you don't feel living anymore, it's pretty much the same thing. Last year, again, I had a really bad bout, and there were days I just laid in bed, and I was okay with the idea of not waking up again. And that's something that's really scary for somebody who's I'm gregarious, I'm outgoing, I'm friendly, but yeah, I was I would never take my own life, but at least I've never felt I would take my own life, but I was kind of okay with an aneurysm taking me, and that's, in my mind, kind of the same. You need more than what was happening. And I've always had seasonal affectiveness disorder, but I was in a car accident 3 years ago, and I have a traumatic brain injury. And part of that traumatic brain injury is I started having major anxiety attacks after this car accident. And I actually, they prescribed something for me, and then it didn't agree with me, and they took me off of it. But now my yearly thing gets a little bit worse, and it's one of those things that, yes, I'm gonna probably eventually have to talk to somebody because it's too much to deal with some days, not every day. And it's not like how I want to live my life. Like, I have goals and I have dreams, and it's not okay to feel that way for yourself, because everybody is important on this planet. Like, everybody has their life, they're somebody's entire world. And even if you don't feel like that, there's somebody who loves you more than anything on this planet. So if you don't have health insurance, like many groomers, there are several counseling apps. I have not used any, but I know people that have. You can always ask online on Facebook. Don't be ashamed if you need help. It's not, there's no reason to be ashamed to ask for help. Most Americans suffer from health disorders, whether it's mental or physical, like fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is something that I had, I would have bouts of when I was younger, and now I honestly really see the link between that and anxiety, because it's like a physical response to your emotions. And there's other things that go into it, and it's kind of a broad category, but it can have that mental aspect, and a lot of times they treat it with an anti-anxiety medication because it is your nervous system, and your nervous system is having a spasm, basically. So even if you don't have health insurance, like, there are options for you to reach out. There's always schools, there's a lot of, if you Google, there's a lot of accessibility, just like lawyers do pro bono, there's counselors that do, like, even group counseling. There's grief counseling, there's anxiety counseling, there's affordable options where maybe you can't get a private session, but you can get some kind of help. So then back to the questions that are good to ask people when they're having a crisis. The ways to reach out to people when they are having a terrible time. Even if you don't know the right thing to say, just be there for somebody. You don't have to solve their problems. You're not going to solve the problem. It's not a problem. It's an overload. It's just like too much of anything, or even too much of just a little thing. It's not, if you don't suffer from anxiety, if you have never suffered from depression, if you've never been around a bipolar person, which unfortunately all of those things run in my family, and also fortunately I only have the anxiety and the seasonal affectiveness disorder, but there's nothing and everything that you can do for that person. It's not about the issue that caused the cycle. It's about breaking the cycle and letting that person feel seen. So back to, don't tell people to smile and don't tell them to cheer up, is because it invalidates their feelings. It invalidates the crisis that they're going through. If you don't know what to say because you feel like uneasy about it, or scared about it, or any of those negative feelings, because you don't have to deal with that in your personal life, then it's best to just say, hey, can I get you something? Because then even if there's nothing else you can do, and they're probably going to say no, you've reached out and you've seen them, and you haven't invalidated them, and it kind of gets you off the hook if you're not comfortable being there for that person. If you ask them if they're okay, maybe they say no, maybe they tell you no and then start to cry like I usually do. Stop it. Maybe they tell you why, and especially if, like, it was Crystal and Cheryl pulled me aside, and Phil Schaffmeyer last weekend. Those were the people that, or not last weekend, but at New England. And Crystal has actually been there for me a lot this year when I've been having problems, because she's been there and she understands, and she doesn't want that to happen to other people. And so, she's been really great. And Phil told me, I told him what was wrong and why I started this cycle, and he pulled me aside, and he was just there for me. So and it, I got it out. I got home. I had a terrible week, and then things started getting better. And now I'm here in Florida with a lot of sunshine, so I'm feeling much better. But yeah, don't tell people to smile. Don't tell people to cheer up. Ask them if they're okay. Can I get you something? Just touch their shoulder. You don't have to tell them that it's okay. You can just tell them, I love you. You're important. I see you. And that's the things that people in a crisis need. And if you feel like they might harm themselves or they might harm someone else, don't hesitate to contact somebody. I know it's scary and it risks a friendship, but if that person's no longer there, that's also a friendship lost. You can see people online. I've seen a lot this week about people out being stressed out and scared and life changes, and kind of open about it. And I appreciate other people being open about it, because I've been open about it for other people, and I think that it helps when you're not alone in these feelings. And the same thing with people online. Don't tell them that to cheer up or smile or things are going to get better, because they probably will, yes, get better, but that's not helpful. And they could get a lot worse before they get better. You don't know, their house could burn down next week. They could lose their car. Their dog could suddenly die. Things could always get worse, and then you being like, it's going to get better, and then a week later, even more shit happens. It just, they're already in a cycle. So yes, things are most definitely probably going to get better. Just like the stock market, it crashes, it goes back up, it goes down, it goes up, and that's life. That is life. But just let that person know online, hey, I'm here for you. If you need something, have you, just something that validates their feelings and doesn't invalidate them as a person. Because when you constantly tell people to just cheer up or smile, or it's going to be okay, it makes them feel invisible. It makes them feel like their feelings are it's not worse for them, it's worse for you. And, that's not what somebody that's having an anxiety attack or a bout of depression needs, is more pressure to act a certain way just to be accepted by their friends, by the people that they admire and respect, by, just strangers out in the street. Sorry you're having a bad day, but I have all these 3,000 bazillion terrible thoughts running through my head, and all of this just dread and adrenaline. And so it's not easy. Again, I grew up with bipolar people. There's a lot of bipolar people in my family, and that's a far scarier type of person. And it's not easy to watch your friends cry, and it's not easy to read those posts where they feel like their whole life is terrible and falling apart. But if you're a real friend, just tell them you're there. And I would say most people with anxiety and depression, that's not severe. Just knowing that somebody's there if they need it. It helps. It just, it eases a little bit of the soul. I shared something from, it's because it's Suicide Prevention Month, so everything's going around. But there was, a little thing about from Winnie the Pooh with Eeyore, and Eeyore's my favorite character. It's always been my favorite character. And he talks about, you know, Pooh and Piglet haven't seen Eeyore for a few days, and they just kind of like go to his hut, and he says, well, I've been hanging out here because I'm sad, and, you know, I'm not much fun to be around, and so I don't want to be around anybody because I don't want to make those people sad. And you know, if you know a friend that's usually very active online, you know, if you know, like, oh, well, usually I see Carol like every Sunday at church, or like Marjorie picking up the kids from school, then, and you don't see them for a few days, or you don't see them for a few weeks, you know, send them a PM and just be like, hey, I'm thinking about you, because that means so much to people. It makes a huge difference. And that's the things that you need to do for people who are in a mental health crisis or depressed. You need to just reach out and be like, hey, you don't need to hear every life problem. You can't solve them all. That's okay. Like, it's okay. Just don't tell people to smile and cheer up, because it's hurtful. It's really toxic. And I know it's meant well. And I know, like, when you don't suffer from anxiety and depression, it seems like the right thing to say, but it can really, really hurt somebody. And again, like I said, I'm not severe, but I do have bouts, and I definitely have severe cycles, and I can't control them. And, you know, if you're somebody who's suffering in silence, and, you know, there are people all over, and I'm definitely one of them, like, just reach out and let me know that I need to check on you, because we can only get through this together. You know, like, that's what friends are for, and that's what being in a community is, and groomers are the best community I know. So I'm going to go soak up the sun now, and help this. But I had a great weekend. I had a great weekend with a lovely friend who I'm not going to put on camera. And, you know, we've had a really great time here, and, you know, I'm looking forward to really great times next year too. And so let's all be happy and healthy, especially with the holidays and the stress coming up, and, you know, keep an eye on everybody, and just reach out and let people know that they're important to you and that they're loved. All right? Have a great Sunday, everybody. I'll see you in 2 weeks.